Yes, we've been on a break and we are back with a bang. I'm your host, Alex Chamwada. Karibu sana. Remember, this show is about you and with you. We focus on development and human interest issues. In this season, we've lined up lots of informative content for you in agriculture, environment, health, transport, international issues, and much more. My colleague, Elijah Mwangi, opens this season with a three-part series, Journey Across Holy Cities. He got an opportunity to travel to Egypt, Israel, Palestine, and Jordan. Today, Elijah is in Egypt, the land of Pharaoh, or if you like, the home to the pyramids of Giza.
Indeed, this is Northern Africa and specifically Egypt, a country that is known for many things. If you're religious, perhaps you know this country is the land where Israelites were enslaved for 400 years. And if you're a bit adventurous, of course, this country reminds you of the pyramids of Giza, the most visited place in Egypt. But first things first, let's have a look at the fact sheet.
Egypt, a country identified with the cradle of civilization, has a population of approximately 80 million people. The country, which is located in northern Africa, shares land borders with 4 countries: Libya, Sudan, Israel, and Palestine. Most of the people in Egypt are Muslims, but there are also many Christians in the Arab-speaking country. The population of Christians in Egypt is estimated to be around 10% of the total population, that is around 8 million. The majority of Christians belong to the Coptic Orthodox Church, which was the dominant religion before Islam. Cairo is the capital city of Egypt. The currency of Egypt is the Egyptian pound. 1 Egyptian pound is about 5 Kenyan shillings. Tourism is one of the leading sources of income, crucial to Egypt's economy. When it comes to trade, both Kenya and Egypt are part of the common market for Eastern and Southern Africa, COMESA. The economic ties and investments have continued to grow between the two countries, and this is evident from the Egypt-Kenyan Business Expos being organized in the country.
I think we see many companies come from Egypt to invest in Kenya right now, and even some from our exhibitors, they already build up many business here, and we see in our side, we see some Kenyans there in Cairo. I meet some people.
And while Kenyans identify Egypt with perfumes, textile and leather product, the Egyptians appreciate the Kenyan tea.
When I back to Egypt, all the time, all my friends, all my family ask me, you bring Kenyan tea or not? If I bring it, they are happy about it.
Time now to learn more about Cairo, the capital city of Egypt. Cairo, a city where the Exodus journey of every Christian pilgrim begins. It is the gateway to the land of plenty and also the land of refuge, according to the Christian teachings. It is in Egypt where Abraham took refuge when there was a drought in Canaan. It is also the land where Joseph prospered after being sold by his brothers. A biblical story found in Genesis chapter 37. And there is more that brings Egypt closer to the Christian faith.
In Egypt, we are able to capture the life of Moses. And then from there, we're able to remember the judges, the kings, because largely it is in Egypt that all that happened.
In the outskirts of Cairo, there stands the Great Pyramid of Giza, the only one of the 7 wonders of the world that is still standing today.
In Egypt here, actually, we got more than 134 pyramids, but this one that we got behind, this is the most important ones, the most one which is still in a very good and perfect shape. And all of it should be the graveyard for 3 of the most famous Egyptian kings. Like the great one to the left here, this is for King Cubes. and the second one in the middle, this is for King Kefren, and finally we got the third one here for King Mykonos. This is the last one here. All of them actually they are one family, like father, son, and grandson. Okay, and as we mentioned, all of it was built and actually to be like a place safe to keep their mummies and to keep their bodies inside it until they're back again to life.
It's no doubt that this is the most visited place in Egypt.
The short one, yeah.
Every day, tourists stream in their numbers.
Let's go inside, we go down other side.
Take for instance this Kenyan delegation that has come all the way, courtesy of Sitam and Oriental destinations in Kenya.
It is amazing to even hear the history of where they came from, of how they started, to just know a magnificent thing like the pyramid was just made as a grave of one person. It is very exciting to see how they came about, and especially the architect that was put into the building of them.
The experience in this particular place, the Giza pyramid, is quite an exciting moment for a tourist, especially if you want to learn the history of human civilization. And it's a very exciting moment to see civilization which has been there for 4,500 years.
Not so far away from the pyramids, there lies the Sphinx, which is carved from a single piece of stone.
The Sphinx, actually, this is one of the biggest statues that we have it in Egypt here, maybe not only in Egypt, also in the whole world. And actually, this statue, it was made especially for King Kefren, the owner of the second pyramid. And this kind of Sphinx statues, it was found in Egypt in many other locations, but this is the greatest one, this is the biggest one, because actually regarding the measure of this statue, it's almost 22 meter high and 72 meter length. And it was made especially to show the powerful of the king.
According to the Exodus account, this is the land where people of Israel were enslaved for 400 years. Questions have been raised as to whether it's the enslaved people of Israel who built the pyramids. Important to note is that the pyramids were built around 2600 BC, long before the people of Israel were enslaved in Egypt. Away from the pyramids, the larger regions of the Sahara Desert, which constitute most of the Egypt's territory, are sparsely inhabited. But as they say, in every desert of calamity, there is an oasis of hope. The biblical tale of people of Israel crossing the Red Sea is familiar to many Christians. Today, the Egypt's eastern coastline along the Red Sea consists of resort cities, which serve as a major tourist attraction. The lavish resorts allow visitors to enjoy breathtaking natural scenery that extends the bronze-colored mountains to the vibrant colors of the Red Sea.
This is the Red Sea, but someone might argue, why is it called the Red Sea? Because by the look of it, there is nothing red about it.
Well, there are so many theories behind the naming of the Red Sea, but seasonal bacteria, commonly known as sea sawdust, which makes the water turn red, is often associated with the naming of the Red Sea. Time now to go back to the Egypt's capital, back to Cairo. Our first day in the historic city is coming to an end. But not without the River Nile cruise through the heart of Egypt.
Cairo, regarded as a city in the desert, is generally hot during the day, but when the night falls, Cairo is full of life.
A cruise on the River Nile is truly an unforgettable experience. This is one place where Kenyans visiting Egypt get to appreciate the Egyptian culture. Mark you, Egypt is a recognized cultural trendsetter of the Arab-speaking world, making it an ideal place for the fans of culture and dance. Well, at this point, we take a short break, but still to come,
Provided we don't stop, we believe that we shall reach our destination on top of Mount Sinai.
Welcome back. This is where we start our journey to Mount Sinai, which is actually at the border of Egypt and Israel. This is Cairo. That means that we are going to take approximately 8 to 9 hours to head there at the foot of Mount Sinai. So come with me and let's discover the wilderness of Sin as well as the springs of Moses, where Moses struck a rock and we had 12 springs of water. It's a long journey across the desert. Remember, Egypt's deserts encompass regions on either side of the Nile, covering more than 90% of the country's land surface. This is the Eastern Desert. This region is just as arid as the West, but features more mountains and oil reservoirs. The area is largely deserted, but along the Red Sea coast, you will find a few populated villages. For some pilgrims, it's time for reflection. Perhaps meditating on the Exodus journey as recorded in the Holy Book. After traveling for several hours in the desert, we get to a first stop, Elim, where we have the springs of Moses, a story captured very well in the Bible.
The story is found in the book of Exodus, chapter 15 and chapter 16. Elim is the place where we have the palm trees, the 12 springs, and it's also another very unique place in the journey of the children of Israel, so that beyond the water that God gave them at Marah, he was also able to provide them this lovely spring here where they were able to drink water and they were able to refresh themselves, because, you know, it was a journey that was in the desert and they were hungry and they were also thirsty. But this particular time they wanted some water to drink, and so God provided water in the desert.
And for any pilgrim visiting the springs of Moses, it's more than just the view.
For us as Christians, we are also pilgrims. And as we journey through the way of life, sometimes we get to places where we find bitterness. And likewise, just the way God was able to turn the water from bitterness into sweet, God can also change those bitter things, those bad things in our lives.
From Elim, we are headed to the wilderness of Sin, or rather, the desert of Sin.
Wilderness of Sin is simply because it was a place where there was so much sin. The children of Israel, as they journeyed from Egypt into Canaan land, this is the place where they tempted God and they rebelled against Moses. You know, this is a desert place. And I believe by that time, most likely the food which they had carried had gotten finished. And so most of them were hungry and they shouted to Moses again and they said, "Why did you bring us into this wilderness so that we can die here? And yet we left so much food back in Egypt." And so they tested not just Moses, but God in the wilderness. And the Bible says in chapter 16 of Exodus that he gave them manna. In the morning when they would wake up, they would find this food that is already set out for them.
We finally arrive at the foot of Mount Sinai. This is the mountain of Moses, the climax of Christian pilgrimage in Egypt. We are meant to understand that the best time to climb the mountain is from midnight due to unfavorable weather condition during the day. As we wait for the night, we take time to visit St. Catherine's Monastery, which is at the foot of the mountain.
أنا اسمي تامر نادي بشتغل هنا في الدير.
My name is Tamir Nadi. I work here in the monastery. I'd like to give you an idea about St. Catherine Monastery. It is one of the very important places in Sinai and maybe in the whole Middle East. It is important because all the pilgrims visiting Jerusalem, they come here as well as to complete their holy visit. This is the only place where God appeared behind the tree as fire and talked to Moses, asking him to take off his shoes, because this is a holy place.
ظهر خلف الشجر على هيئة نار وكلم موسى.
At the dead of the night, we start our climb to the top of Mount Sinai, in the footsteps of Moses. The path is rough, and the presence of small hard rocks makes the climb a difficult assignment. Accompanying the pilgrims are the Bedouins, the locals around Mount Sinai. To them, it's not the pilgrimage that matters, rather the business aspect. They are more than ready to offer camel rides to the tired pilgrims, but of course at a fee. But it seems the pilgrims here want the experience of Moses firsthand. No one is taking a camel ride. It's a story recorded in the Bible, and specifically Exodus chapter 20. This is the place where Moses climbed the mountain and received the 10 commandments. We are meant to understand that from the foot of the mountain, where we have St. Catherine's Monastery, to the top of the mountain, it's about 2.1 kilometers. Now, we are halfway the journey, and that's why we've decided to take a rest and take some refreshments.
No sugar.
It's time for coffee. Though there is a language barrier because most of the locals here are Bedouins, man is the language that everyone seems to understand. So, $1 for coffee. Thank you. After the refreshments, we can go. Time to continue with our climb. Well, they say that it's one thing to read what's written in the Bible and another thing to see the places written in the Bible. And that's why we are so determined to go to the top of this mountain. Hours into the night, and the journey is turning out to be longer than expected. Hours are rolling into each other, but we have to take a rest. This time round, I decide to interact with the pilgrims. Wakili, mambo namna gani? How is the climb so far?
Mzuri kabisa.
What do you think of the experience so far?
The higher I go, the closer I feel to God.
And when you look at this experience, of course, looking at the entire Exodus journey, don't you think maybe the children of Israel had reasons to complain?
In fact, if it were me also, I would complain the same way they complained. So they are justified.
Climbing Mount Sinai can be a real challenge, regardless of whether one walks or rides on a camel 2/3 of the way up. The last stage of the climb is even more difficult. Father Charles Kinywa, who works for Catholic Bishops of Kenya, has climbed Mount Sinai several times. He shares his experience and what it means to the Catholic faith.
Once there, it gives you the effort that one has to take to keep the contact with God. Because Christianity is about connection, how we connect with our God. Now, going to Mount Sinai, retracing the steps of Moses and the Decalogue, it reminds us of the effort that we must take to keep our faith growing.
After 6 hours, we are finally on top of the mountain. Yes, Mount Sinai. We left St. Catherine's Monastery at around midnight, and now it's actually 6 a.m. That means we've done 6 hours of mountain climbing, and for me, it's such a wonderful experience. And how fulfilling it is to be on the same spot where Moses received the 10 commandments. On the top of the mountain rests a sanctuary where pilgrims conduct their prayers upon arrival. Hallelujah. Watching the sunrise, revealing how many other travelers and pilgrims made it to the top in total darkness, gives the hike a complete new meaning. It's more than just a hike.
God brought Moses to this mountain so that he could speak to him and give him the law. And of course, as we know, the 10 commandments were given to Moses right here on this mountain. And it is the same law that he went down the mountain to take to the people. And that formed the very basis for human existence in terms of the precepts of God, the ordinances of God, and the law of God. That is the main framework as we know it.
Time to go down the mountain. And everyone seems not to believe that actually this is the same route we used on our way up in total darkness. Others taking the moment to capture the amazing landscape for their memories, not sure when such an experience presented by rental destinations would come by again. Remember, I'm the Lord your God who brought you out of slavery in Egypt. Do not worship any other God apart from me. That's Exodus chapter 20, verse 1. The first commandment, and that's what I'll remember Mount Sinai for. I don't know about you.
It has been my desire all along to see where Moses was, who he encountered God personally. And when you try to think of what happened really, and you try to meditate, I feel as if I can also have an encounter with my God.
Since I've been born again so many years ago, I've wanted to know whether actually these places exist. You know, yes, you believe they're there, but sometimes you think maybe it was a bit mythical. But when you come and see it for yourself, you tend to feel like it's real.
We end our Exodus journey in Mount Nebo, which is an elevated ridge on the Jordanian side. This is where Moses reached, and he was shown the promised land, Canaan, though he never got there. And today there are so many questions concerning the location of Canaan. It should be noted that, as mentioned in the Bible, Canaan comprised of different nations made up of different tribes, which today are represented by countries like Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, and Palestine. Remember, there is a very thin line between Palestine and Israel today. Now, Canaan, as mentioned in the Bible, should not be confused with the Cana in Galilee. Cana in Galilee is a small town in Nazareth where Jesus did his first miracle of changing water into wine.
What a presentation. Thank you so much, Elijah. I may not have been on that journey, but you've brought the story closer home. Next week, be sure to join Elijah in the second part of this series, Across Holy Cities. He will be crossing over to Israel and Palestine. On that note, we come to the end of the show. On behalf of the crew, thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.